$1 million per coin in 10 years. But, we have some pretty big bands around that, right? So we might be at, on the low end, 200,000. On the high end, we might be at 2 million, right? The 4-year cycle thing is like linked to these halvings. The halvings are not as important anymore. So maybe we'll have a cycle just because we're like trained to have cycles now. But, I don't see any actual supply-demand reason why we have to go to every 4 years crash 75%.
Fred Krueger begins his analysis by addressing the common perception of Bitcoin's volatility. When viewed on a regular scale, Bitcoin appears highly unpredictable, with significant price spikes and crashes. For many, this unpredictability makes Bitcoin seem like a risky investment. However, Krueger suggests a different approach, viewing Bitcoin's price on a logarithmic scale, or even a log-log scale, which reveals a more consistent and linear growth pattern. This pattern, known as the power law, provides a more reliable framework for predicting Bitcoin's future price movements. According to this model, Bitcoin's price is expected to reach around $1 million per coin in the next decade, though this estimate comes with a range of possible outcomes, from $200,000 to $2 million. Please take a little time to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications for more videos like this. You can also check out our other videos on cryptocurrencies and the overall digital asset space and drop your comments and observations in the comments section below. Everything you do helps with the YouTube algorithm and immensely contributes to the channel's growth. Thanks and enjoy the video.
If you look at Bitcoin and you're just looking at it without looking at it in log terms, right? If you're just looking at it normally, your narrative is this thing is very risky, right? And it goes up. It went up a lot in 2018 or 2017. It crashed in 2018. It went up a lot in 2020. It crashed in 2022. Now it's back up, but it just seems completely volatile, right? Like, there's no rhyme or reason to this thing. It goes up, it goes down, it crashes. Now, if you look at it on a log basis, where Bitcoin price is on a log, it looks like, well, it's going up, but it's sort of like going up a little less fast. And then if you look at it on a log basis, you're like, oh, wow, this thing is kind of a line, right? It's going up in a linear fashion, very predictably, with actually sort of a reasonable volatility to it in log terms. So I think it's an important discovery that Bitcoin actually is obeying this very sort of regular progression. And this Italian physicist, Giovanni, kind of first observed this and, pointed it out, and nobody cared. And, he was sort of ignored. And, and he sort of, one of the things I've tried to do is try to explain to people what he did, And so I was sort of saying, look, you should, give the man some credit. He found this incredible relationship, and since then there's been a lot of other people who have looked at these laws and gone back and done the math and the analysis and the statistics themselves, and there is this power law. It really does exist, and it's predictive, and it gives you some sense of where we're going, which is higher, but also kind of what range, what kind of confidence interval do we have in like where it's going to be in 10 years, right? And so the power law tells you, well, we should be at roughly $1 million per coin in 10 years, but we have some pretty big bands around that, right? So we might be at, on the low end, 200,000. On the high end, we might be at 2 million, right? So those are sort of some bands that you can look at the power law and you can get some idea of kind of like the range of outcomes and their likelihood, if you just follow the statistics of this progression. And I do believe in that broadly. if we got to say 200,000 in the next 6 months, right? Let's say 6 or 9 months. The power law would tell you that you're at the higher end of the band, right? So it might be a sort of an indication that you should take some money off the table. We're kind of not there yet. We're kind of right in the middle of the range. But it could tell you, that that maybe now is a good time to sell. And, it was very, very accurate on the bottoms, right? So it's sort of like, back in November of, 2022, it was just like, yeah, you should just be completely all in, at 16,000. It really, the bottoms are incredibly accurate. The tops are less accurate. The 4-year cycle thing is like linked to these halvings. The halvings are not as important anymore. So maybe we'll have a cycle just because we're like trained to have cycles now. But, I don't see any actual supply demand reason why we have to go to every 4 years crash 75%. Like, no, why? The stock market's gone up for, it's pretty much gone up with just a few crashes nonstop for 30 years. So, could Bitcoin go up for 30 years? I think so. Will there be some crashes? Yeah. Some point there are going to be some crashes, but it's being mainly in Bitcoin I think it's a good place to be right now. So, I think we're going to do fine. We're going to do fine over the next 5 years. So I'm super supportive of anybody who wants, anybody who wants to interview me or whatever. I'm to the extent that I have the time, I'm certainly.
Krueger expresses strong support for Bitcoin as a form of money, envisioning a future where it replaces fiat currencies like the dollar, euro, and yen. He predicts that in 20 years, Bitcoin will be widely used for everyday transactions, including paying for meals, hotel stays, and even taxes. This transition, he believes, will mark a fundamental shift in the global monetary system, driven by Bitcoin's finite supply and decentralized nature. Krueger emphasizes the need for Bitcoin to reach a much higher valuation. He estimates that widespread adoption will require Bitcoin's price to exceed $1 million, potentially reaching $5 to $10 million, depending on inflation and other economic factors. This higher valuation would enable Bitcoin to function effectively as both a store of value and a medium of exchange.
I think Bitcoin is money, and I think it is a replacement for the fiat system that we have now. And I do think that in 20 years, if you go to a restaurant, you'll be paying in Bitcoin. If you go to a hotel, you'll be paying in Bitcoin. And you'll probably be paying your taxes in Bitcoin as well. Okay. So I actually believe that Bitcoin is the new currency. It will replace the dollar. It will replace the euro. And it will replace the yen. That's what I believe. Okay. Now, these things take a long time and they're sort of hard to see. There's such, it's been going for 15 years. And so will it have completely done it by 20 years? No, but I think it'll be pretty obvious that it will be there. We may be in sort of this buy system, where there still is the euro to some extent, but most people are using Bitcoin. We've seen sort of these changes where, you had two sort of things working at the same time. I remember when the euro came into France, I was in France at the time, and we had this transition from the franc to the euro, and for a while you could exchange French francs for euro. And then after a while, those French francs were not exchangeable anymore, and I still have some, somewhere I have an old 500 franc bill, that's useless. I can't even go to the central bank and exchange it anymore. But I do think that we're in this phase of that. So I do think it's the new world money, and I think it's going to change everything because it's not money that you can print. It's it has this finite supply, so it's a different kind of money. that kind of money will be used as a savings account as well as a sort of a checking account in one. But I think in order to get there, I think we have to get to, over Bitcoin 1 million in order to get to the point where it fulfills that role, right? So I think if everybody's using Bitcoin as sort of the money that everybody uses, Bitcoin's probably in the, 5 to 10 million kind of range, somewhere around there, depending on what what the price of a cup of coffee is, which is sort of a, uncertainty. But I do think that's where we're going with this thing. It's a fundamental shift in money, as far as, this sort of better money, but it's also a fundamental shift in like the power of these large governments to just endlessly print money to do whatever they want. I think it's going to reduce that power substantially. Bitcoin right now has this fundamental limit that you have about 200 million transactions per year that can happen on the Bitcoin blockchain, right? Now, if you're going to use the Bitcoin blockchain in any way, and even if it's going to be used with Lightning, right, and you have 1 billion people using it, you really have, those people can only use it once every 5 years. So unless it's just this pet rock that you can hold and you can sell every 5 years, it doesn't scale to the 1 billion person level as is right now, right? You just can't, you don't get there, so we're not at the point of, urgency. And it can scale, right? We can get it to go up. Now, one way that, people were talking about back in 2016, from 2015 to 2017 was to increase the block size, right? And there was obviously these huge wars around that, right? In the end, the sort of smaller block size won, for now, I would say. And look, it won by a compromise, right? We started at 1 megabyte, right? We kind of ended at 4, with SegWit. But it was very much of a compromise, and I think sort of nobody really loves the current system that much.
Krueger also addresses the current limitations of the Bitcoin network, particularly its capacity to handle transactions. With roughly 200 million transactions per year, Bitcoin's scalability remains a challenge. For Bitcoin to support 1 billion users, significant improvements are needed. While solutions like the Lightning Network offer some scalability, Krueger suggests that more fundamental changes, such as increasing the block size, may be necessary in the future. Krueger notes that the current system, which resulted from a compromise, may not be optimal for long-term growth. As Bitcoin continues to evolve, finding the right balance between scalability and decentralization will be crucial to its success. Please like and subscribe my channel.